Okay, welcome Ashes Nation to the first episode of the Jankyard.
Hello.
I am
Hi,
Killer Cactus. I have with me the hypest hype man that Ashes has. That's Schmendrix,
the hypest. Only the hypest.
hypest, and I have the roastiest roaster that Ashes has as well. The treatment
Oh, what a reputation I've garnered.
you have,
So,
sir.
so am I like the upper and treatment's
And
the
I'm the
downer?
downer? Oh, great.
Yeah, we had somebody to pick us up and somebody to tear us down, and I'll try and play a happy medium. I don't know.
Be the ballast.
Yeah, and also have Doge King 290, my son, with me today, helping out on technology and maybe a little Ash's color commentary.
Hello there.
The best free
What's
employee.
up?
Yeah, free labor is the best labor. There's no doubt about it.
Hey, I can walk out of here right now, bro.
You could. I'm set up. You're free to go. um. Anyway, we wanted to start a podcast and do some talking about Ashes, specifically deck building. I know that's my favorite part of the game, and talking to these two guys, it's something they love about Ashes as well, and we're all three kind of open-minded deck builders, and like to try the jank, so to speak, and make it work. So we thought we'd get together and start this podcast up to talk about some builds, help other people in the community out with theirs, and also go over Ash's current events, the meta, the tournaments going on, hot Discord chat, maybe roast a couple people here and there, all that good stuff.
Discard chat has only been hot lately.
Yeah, seriously, there has been a lot of Discord debate, both heated and unheated, I guess.
It's a good
Yeah,
week to start a podcast, if
you're
that's
not
what we're
kidding.
going to cover.
Yeah, lots of material for sure. Um, but yeah, we'll have a couple things that we do every week, and one of those things is just going to be to go over the events that are going on and talk about them. So I guess we should start off, guys, by just talking about the Shuffle Bus Pod qualifier, since we're recording this roughly an hour after Tuxedo's Hope Creepers took home the event. So did you guys get to watch that finals match?
Yeah, I got to watch, I would say 90% of the game with a little break while I put my little one down. And it was a great game. I mean, you don't really expect anything less from Brian in terms of his play and managing to get out of sticky situations, and against Hope Creepers, which is currently the big bugaboo. He played really well, but Tuxedo pulled it out, which is awesome. Like, congrats to him. I'm pretty sure it's his first win, but not his first round in the finals or the top cuts. And so, congrats to him, and congrats to Brian as well for making it again to the finals, this time with a different look, a different deck in Aerodel, bringing her back, which is really cool. And it's just great to have good quality games. And obviously the Shuffle Bus guys do a great job with the coverage of that.
Yeah, they really do. It's awesome just to have some live stream games. So, hey, big shout outs to Jesse and Neil for doing that, because it's awesome just to be able to especially watch the whole top 8. That's really cool. And also other stream games throughout the tournament. But yeah, Brian and Tuxedo, both awesome players. Got to meet them both at Gen Con this year, actually, which was cool. Tuxedo beat me in the first round of the Gen Con tournament, and Brian beat my son in the third round or so. And yeah, they're both awesome players. Was happy to see Brian's Aerodel make it. Obviously I played Aerodel too, and I thought she was a good meta pick going into this tournament. I kind of anticipated a lot of of the 3/2s and stuff. A lot of the Ashteki games I played, there was a lot of Cloudburst Griffin, a lot of Ruin Dweller, a lot of Mirror Spirit, that kind of stuff. So Aerodel felt good into all of that, and Brian took her a long way. But treatment, like you said, Hope Creepers. If there is a meta right now, Hope after the Widow's Chain, Hope Creepers probably is that, right? If there's one deck out there, So certainly a tough task that Brian had. I missed the first round. What did Tuxedo first five? Do you guys know?
Schmendrix, did you see that start? That was the
I
one
don't.
part I missed.
Yeah, I don't. I jumped in late. I think it was midway through round one, so I'm not entirely sure it was in the first five. Um,
From what I heard, I think there was a double down play.
That's
that
kind
is
of what I was
true.
wondering if there was a if there was a double down or not. I'd seen.
There was a double down. I
Okay.
think that's right when I joined. Was at the moment of the double down. Yeah, Brian tried to come out quite aggressively and deal with it, and he just, I think, invited the double down basically to try and um, keep the duplicate play off,
Yeah.
and that's what he was, um, or just, I guess, try and pressure down um, the hope. But it was it was tough. I mean, I think watching that game, Brian was on the deck that produced my favorite moment of recent Shuffle Bus um, tourney commentary when he, I think, hit with a explosive growth wishing wing for 8 and
Yeah, it's
elicited
great.
Neil saying blammo.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
and so that's the blammo deck in my mind. And I
Yes.
think
Oh yeah.
it's like it's those kinds of plays as yeah, the resident Ashes hype man get me very excited, and it's about the right amount of jank. I think, I think if I find a deck that I can take to top eight, it will be something a bit like that where it's got a strong value engine in the way that Aerodel does with her 4 book and Water Blast, and then also has the ability to make plays like that. It's just a little jank flavor spice thrown in those combo plays, but I think watching that game, it was also a little disheartening because the sheer amount of removal that Brian packs in that deck still couldn't keep pace with
Yeah.
um, creepers. It really makes you wonder whether there's anything that can actually keep that in check.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a scary deck, man. And I mean, I've talked on the Discord a little bit about I played against Greenleaf's Hope Creepers at Gen Con and was able to hit a meteor in the first five that killed a Huntmaster and Creeper and Seeds and wiped the whole board in the first round. And I got 8 damage on Hope without taking any in return after between round one and the top of round two, and thought I was like, all right, I've won. I just kind of have to bring this home, right? And I did not. Because that deck is just so efficient at putting guys on the board. Um, Even after a first round, meteor clearing everything out, take full control of the battlefield, it still just didn't matter. It's a very, very scary deck, and but that gives us an opportunity to find some ways to combat it, right? I think there's, maybe there's some stuff in the card pool that isn't played quite so much that might be able to help out against this. I mean, we talked a lot in the Discord this week about, stuff like ways to discard the creeper, right? Astria's ability plus 2 shadows came to mind as a easy way to exhaust and discard a creeper without triggering seeds and double down and stuff. Jess's Fear can do it, right? And those are a couple Phoenixborn that the meta hasn't really. I mean, Jess has kind of been around a little bit, but I mean, meta hasn't really included the two of them.
yeah. I
So
think I think there's a lot to explore still. I don't think it's it's undefeatable. It's just probably going to take some off the main line type of units or cards to get there, or a combination. All kinds of things. I think I've seen Clue experimenting lately with String Mage.
yeah, that's another good
I've
one.
personally been considering the different laws, either Fear or I think Sight mainly, to sort of stop more of Hope's reaction, either the Void Pulse or the Double Down. And then you can probably go more tricky with things like discard, either from an Astria 2 Shadows, or I think there were some interesting ideas with like Reflections and Air's End. there's a lot to still experiment, but it is obviously very difficult. It's now what, the second at least tournament that deck has won, and previously, Carl had put in many good showings with it, as well as others. So it's just, I think if you're building to play competitive, basically that's the one you have to aim to beat. Everything else is a side consideration.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you go back to Shuffle Bus 6, right? So there's Shuffle Bus 6, Shuffle Bus 7, Gen Con, and then Shuffle Bus 8, right? Were the last four big tournaments. And I think those were all won either by Brennan Widows or Hope Creepers,
Hmm.
right? So there's, I mean, and Brennan Widows is gone, right? But I don't think we'll see Brennan go away completely. I think she's still gonna find ways to deal a lot of damage in round one and then close with burn. That's what Brennan wants to do, and I think she can still do that. But I mean, those are the decks to beat right now, right? It's kind of clear. Although,
Yeah, and I think, yeah,
yeah, all I was gonna say is no one has really played Maoni lately, which was the other
that's true.
big time deck, and I'd be interested to see how she does.
That was actually surprising to me at Gen Con. I didn't see any.
Yeah, there was like 0 Maonis at Gen Con, and not a lot in the last couple shuffle buses either.
Especially given that Hope is going to feed you a certain number of tokens every round just from her duplicate
Right.
antics and
Yeah,
other
and
things.
blowing up seedlings to make thorns, like that gives them
Right.
tokens too. It's yeah.
It's a little.
Yeah, I
It
think
makes you a
Brennan,
little congested.
for sure. I think Brennan is still interesting, and um, no such method has been on a. I've played him a couple times. He's been on a Brennan with that actually first fives Black Cloud Ninja, which is not a card that typically sees any first five play in um, Brennan, not even inclusion in the deck generally. But if you're heading into seeds, it's actually pretty interesting to think about, since it actually threatens to shut the seeds engine down pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And the Brennan deck we have built here at home has Black Cloud Ninja in it, just because I've got 7 decks or something built out of the same collection, right? And so I threw a Ninja in there because I needed another ally. And then my first 5 did a couple times, and I was like, man, this thing does work. Like nobody plays it,
Yeah.
and it can do some work. So I'm that's cool that he's messing around with that. I think it's a good idea, and I think Brennan should do it more in general.
Yeah, I have an idea I think that I put together, and it was with Brennan, Ninja, and then Fallen. So it was a Fallen deck, and just using those allies that Hope can't really just keep smashing into and trading fairly. And I think Carl also had mentioned that Fallen is probably one of the main counters because you just can be so efficient. So it's something I think that's interesting to try. And then naturally with Brennan, because she's also on 5 battlefields, you have the self sack with the burn damage. So it's like you're sort of covering all those bases, but it's definitely more of a control deck, which I think could be really interesting. And if you are doing maybe the open memories route, then you're in charm and ceremonial. So if you toss in, say, illusion, that gives you a lot of the either protective or control spells, whether it's Fate Reflection or even Seal, which could be really cool, like as a 1 or 2 of for late game once the focused books come out and you really just shut it down and then are able to side action and finish with burn.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to talk about, Seal. I mean, I know you and I were talking about it a bit in the Discord today, kind of on the back of Carl suggesting that, he wishes Noah was a good counter to these conjuration specific decks. And, one thing I've noticed over the last couple seasons of tournaments and the last couple releases is that we're seeing a lot more focused ready spells than we have in the past. I think, obviously Wishing Wing is a big reason for that. Right? A lot of people playing Wishing Wing, so we're drawing a lot of cards. And Wishing Wing is a book that you might want to focus. So that itself is causing people to run, 3x Wishing Wing books. We're seeing 3 Creeper books in decks. We're seeing multiple Mirror Spirit books. We're seeing multiple Time Hopper books, and stuff like Redentor is doing. There's a lot of book focusing happening,
Yeah, and
and
you also have the 5 spellboard Phoenix Born, right? You have
sure,
Rowan that
yeah,
came out, you have
it,
Hope that came out. So
yeah, it gives you more reason to run more ready spells, and that makes Seal a card that maybe you want to look at, right? Like if they have 2 or 3 Mirror Spirit books out, and you drop a Seal and shut them out for the whole round. I mean, that might be worth it now. I mean, it's tough to be in 2 colors, especially those 2 colors, because they're 2 of the weaker ones, I think, still. But,
Yeah.
um, but I mean, that might be something that we can look at, right? And people want to look at going forward to shut off some of these focus books, especially a book like Creeper, where, I mean, putting 2 creepers out in a round is just like backbreaking.
Yeah.
There's just so much to deal with.
you think
I,
Illusion is one of the weaker colors still?
I do. I don't think it's necessarily weak, but I mean, something has to be the weakest, right? I think Charm is probably the weakest color, but I think Illusion is down there. I think I don't know. My personal opinion is that Charm or I'm sorry, that Nature and Time and Sympathy are kind of at the top, and still think Divine's a good color. I like Divine, I think, more than a lot of other people do, but
yeah.
um,
I think I think the tricky part with Seal is that the value it can deliver is not just matchup dependent, but also I feel like time dependent. Like I think it's much stronger, obviously, once there's a focus book down, which is typically not happening
right.
against folks other than maybe Hope like Wishing Wing until round 2, and then um, so you don't want to first 5 it, which means then you're counting on drawing into it, which means that you're then either stuck running more than one or counting on your one of to hit. And I had a Saria deck that ran body inversion. This was back in Three-Eyed Owl days, but it also had a 1x seal, and that definitely won me a couple games, one against a fallen deck. Um, but it was totally luck dependent to hit it, and it never felt good to run more than one seal. It makes me wonder about, though, running something. Matt Bowers has been running actually a lot of decks with on time, charm, and illusion. Despite it being weaker, it does have a strong um, pair of knights in Realm Walker and Sunshield Sentry,
Hmm.
and it's got tools to refresh them. It makes me kind of wonder about actually running that in Jericho, where she could use Blink to refresh the Realm Walker and also potentially prepare a seal to draw in round 2. So you're on a 9 dice first 5, but in the right matchup, you effectively plan to have a seal in your hand round 2.
That's pretty cool. I mean, if you manage to blink a knight, you're almost getting 2 dice up, right? Because it's a cheaper refresh than anything else. So instead of playing a double knight strategy, if you refresh Realm Walker, that's a lot of value, especially from the exhaustion that you're getting. And then, the prepare cost isn't that big of a deal, which, and then I think also, I mean, I don't think Illusion's that weak, but you have access to a lot of the sturdier units, like you said, Sunshield, Beast Tamer's there, and with the obvious backup of both Fate Reflection and Golden Veil. So if you do want to play that defensive game, you have it. It's just a matter of then what cards do you use to support the win condition, aside from, I guess, Sympathy Pain, really, which is a little bit of burn, but it's that or it's going the pure mill route.
And I guess another thing, about Seal and also about, treatment to your point a little bit ago about Fallen, being a good hope counter, is that now that Widows is chained, it's very possible we could see the game slow down a little bit. I don't know. I mean, Fishton is still a deck, right? And obviously Hope, Creepers is still a deck that's pretty quick. But I still feel like the main super speed deck was the Widows Brennan, and part of the reason that Fallen wasn't seeing a lot of play is because we said it's just too slow, right? It takes too long to set up. By the time you're set up, you're down 8 damage and it was kind of hard to recover and get the engine back up. If games slow down a little bit, then not only does Fallen become much more viable archetype of a deck again, but Seal starts looking better then too. Not only because number one, it's really good against Fallen, right? So if Fallen starts coming into the meta, Seal's really good against it. But number two, the slower games go, the more focused ready spells we're going to see, and then the stronger Seal gets in those second rounds, third rounds. And Spendrix, I love that idea of Jericho in that deck, and Redentor has done some really good things with Jericho lately, but I still think there's some unexplored prepare tech out there, right? That preparing, like you said, preparing Seal for round 2 or preparing Neil for the top of a round, right? Or we've done the River Scald prepare trick. A lot of people have seen that. There's so many things that prepare can do that makes it worth a die that I don't know that has been super explored. But I think that idea with Jericho is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, completely untested, obviously, but it is really intriguing to think about what Seal can do. And I think your point about Fishstin, so to speak, is really important because we haven't seen Hope Creepers into Tristan yet. Well, I guess it's possible that in this latest Shuffle Bus pod, Tristan could have made the top 8, but I'm curious about you know, having the 3x Tsunami shot, which is a pretty nice way. It trades even into the Creeper and can take out the seed, and if you can pick up something else along the way, or just power through a Fate Reflection, that seems pretty good to have online, and you can potentially race the Hope on the back of the fish. So
Yeah, and
I suspect we will see it.
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. I think Tristan is gonna. It just hasn't shown up yet, but he will. And to that extent, he's also probably running Ryle the Meek, or at least a lot of the Tristan Fish decks do, which basically is 3 more Tsunami shots, right?
Yeah.
It ends up being a lot. So those are 6 cards in your deck that can kind of light up Creeper and not go, not and trade even or better in Ryle the Meek's case on dice. So yeah, that's a good point and might be an answer. I'm betting we're gonna see a lot more Tristan in AshCon, than we did in the Shuffle Bus Pod qualifier.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
so maybe that's a good segue, right, to start talking about AshCon 3.
Yeah, I
That's
have no idea what I'm gonna bring.
yeah. Yeah, well, you got a little bit of time. I don't think it starts till when's it start? October, the week of the 10th. So next
Yeah,
week.
it sounds like it.
Let me I have it here. So
I don't
it's
remember.
Monday, October 10th,
Yeah.
9 a.m. to Friday, the 14th.
All right. So you got this weekend to figure it out.
Yeah, well, it's
Um.
Thanksgiving for me, so I
Oh,
won't
okay.
be
You're
paying
not either.
attention to any new deck builds.
Okay.
Not like I'm gonna have time to test anything.
That's fair point. But
And happy Canadian Thanksgiving,
yes,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
just Thanksgiving.
yeah,
Yeah.
just Thanksgiving. Yeah. Yeah. No, AshCon 3 is gonna be fun. I mean, the last one was fun. I like that there is now more like I guess support you can call it from Plaid Hat or from Nick to celebrate the releases, which is really cool. As far as I know, too, from the stats that like Dijon has been keeping, it also does demonstrate that there's an uptick, at least in terms of online play. I'm not really sure how that translates over on the Team Covenant side if they're also seeing an uptick in people either joining leagues or just playing casual matches because I don't play the webcam stuff, but it's fun and I think it's a good format. I don't know about the level of competitiveness that was on display in terms of the Discord channel the other day. I think things got a little heated there. But it is cool that there's prize support for it, and I think at least we're all on the same page, or we all ended on the same page that we're all aiming to win regardless of what we bring, and to all not be jerks about it. So I hope that that's pretty neutral and agreeable.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think people just really recognize how important AshCon is to bring new players into the game and hopefully encourage them to stick around the Discord and the Ash Techie lobbies. So I think that conversation was all coming from a very good place and reflects a couple things. People are super excited about AshCon, really want it to grow the player base a bit, and don't want anyone to be a jerk about it. But we also all want the new set of translucent dice that Plaid Hat's making available. So I have a lot of faith in the community, and I've always had good AshCon games. I will say that there is a greater risk, I think, in AshCon than in other tournament settings, like a Shuffle Bus, for example, of misunderstandings about rules interactions or just a little awkwardness about that because you do have a wider array of players with greater variability in their knowledge of the rules. So um, I think just calls for grace and patience with folks, and I think it should be really fun.
Not just the rules. I think it's more like it's reasonable to expect as a tournament that people play or accept the rules and play to the best knowledge of it, but also that they allow what's I guess what would consider rollbacks or manual fixing, especially because not all the players have played on Ash Techie before, or at least not as familiar with maybe things when things go wrong, because manual mode and the commands can sometimes get people tripped up, or there are at least I think one or two things that are bugs, and so if they come up, it's important to acknowledge them. But everyone should be at least on the same page of like when I'm playing, you expect the other person to generally understand what's going on in terms of the rules of the game.
yeah. My takeaway from those discussions in the Discord was like we started getting confused about whether whether playing like in a cutthroat nature meant are we talking about everyone's going to bring the best possible deck they can bring and that makes you a cutthroat player, or are we talking about if you click the wrong button we're not going to let you take it back and it's absolutely completely on you, right? And I think I think it's the latter, right? That we're trying to kind of discourage. To your guys' point, there's people out there that don't play on Ash Techie a ton that are gonna get on here for maybe the first time because they want to play Ashes as part of this event, and us guys that and girls that play Ash Techie a lot, right, need to help them out with that and be accepting of it, and just don't be a jerk, right? I mean, even in shuffle bus games, people roll stuff back all the time. Like, let's
Yeah, just play a strong enough deck, and then it doesn't matter what they roll
Yeah,
back.
just crush them all.
yeah. I mean,
No, that is it's not the answer.
yeah.
No,
I mean,
my rule has always been, and I think this is probably consistent across a variety of games. I know even in board games, which is if something doesn't reveal new information, like if a mistake doesn't reveal new information, or even sometimes if it doesn't reveal information in favor of the person, like the opposing player who didn't make the mistake, then it's fine to roll back. So if you are attacking and the other player, accidentally skips past a reaction window, they haven't revealed anything, and if they say, actually, wait, there was a reaction I wanted to play, whatever, I missed it, or I am second guessing myself. They haven't revealed anything new, or the information they have revealed is that they have a reaction and it's not to your detriment, right? So I think those are the situations that are perfectly reasonable. If it comes to something, especially more in the physical game where it's like, oh, I'm going to go into a draw phase and I've now revealed cards and I say, actually, I don't want to play that. Like I didn't want to play Generosity. You can't put those back because now you've seen the top of your deck. Something like that is, I think, where I would draw the line of you can't give yourself a positive benefit through new information. But I tend to try and just be as accommodating as possible, unless it's against the big guys. Then got to play to win.
Yeah, I mean, it's those dice are sweet. I've seen them; they're awesome. But I mean, I'm not going to be a jerk to win them. I want to play Ashcon to have fun. It's in my mind the funnest event only because it's so cool to like just jump on Ash Techie at almost any given time during that week, and there's a bunch of games going on to watch, and there's streams almost every day, and it's just the last two have been really really cool. I don't want people to get discouraged about playing in it because they think people are like going all completely all out to get these new dice and they're going to be unreasonable and cutthroat in their play. That's not going to happen, right? I mean, I've never played a game on Ash Techie ever, right, where anyone has been like that in any setting. So I just can't imagine that happening. And I mean, people bring good decks, maybe. I mean, they probably should. And we've talked a lot in the meta channel about how like players should probably bring good decks more often, and that gives us ways to figure out how to beat them and see what actually is good so that we can make good decisions about how to beat those things. So yeah, I mean, bring your good deck, right? You want to play Hope Creepers, play it, but just don't be a jerk about it, and I think everybody's good.
Well, and that sort of translates or transitions to the point that I think you had brought up, Shmeny, earlier in just the casual chat where you said avoiding using jank or jankiness as an excuse for losing, which I thought was really interesting because it's not something I'd ever really considered, at least not from more of a competitive side. I mean, I probably don't exemplify that in my first, whatever it was, 4 showings where I played Noah. But I wasn't doing it where it was like, well, I'm not confident in being able to play as a new player into a bunch of very experienced players, so I'm going to play something that is bad. I came into it more like I'm a little bit stubborn and buying into a new game and then being told that, half of the cards are just not good, even though they look really cool, wasn't what I wanted. So it was more about like putting something together that I actually believed in. And then if I do lose, I still accept that that's on me. But in casual play, I definitely will tend sometimes to throw an idea together that I'm like, this is really out there. And then if I lose, I don't beat myself up about it because I'm like, well, that was a real test of a game, but I wasn't expecting anything.
Yeah, I think that was tagged onto a conversation I think others were having. I think Clue was in there. I think Cactus, you were participating in that.
It was.
I think it's even a little subtler than that, which is it may not even be conscious. But I'll say that not this past shuffle bus, but the one before, where I ran the Symboli Realm Walker with hunting weapons. I really didn't know what to run into that shuffle bus. I think that was just when Hope and Hope had come out and the meta had changed quite a bit, and I really just didn't know what to run. And I could have run something more standard. I didn't have a lot of confidence, to be totally honest, in that Realm Walker hunting weapons deck, but I thought, one, I think it was potentially problematic. So if it was going to be problematic, I wanted to try and show off why it's problematic. And I think it's largely problematic if you're not prepared for it, and it can be a negative play experience, which I should just say is another reason why the meta might want to keep the meta evolving and fresh, even if something isn't technically unbeatable. If it's just really unpleasant to play against, it would be a reason to keep things different, which frankly I think is part of the reason why the Three-Eyed Owl chain exists. But in any case, I could have run something more standard and probably done better. I was 2-3. I straight up threw one of those games, which is frustrating looking back, but still Um, but I opted for the weird thing that I knew was better in a closed list setting than an open list setting because um, it was proving a couple points about what Symbolic could do and what I thought Realm Walker and Hunting Weapons could do, even if the deck itself wasn't set up to perform super well. I think there was a little element of I don't know the right answer. I could, net deck a meta deck and see if I can do better, but I'm going to go with this other thing and, right up against the tournament, give myself an out for why I'm not going to perform super well in this tournament. So I think that's the way in which you just want to be alert to it and give yourself actually the best chance you can to perform as you want to, or at a minimum have fun. And I actually did have quite a lot of fun in that tournament playing that deck. Every one of those games was a total nail biter. I think I won or lost every single one of my games by like 3 or fewer health in that run.
I mean, I just want to say too that that combo deck is not a bad deck. Like I don't want to leave the impression that I think you were an early experimenter with that, but I don't think that negates sort of the validity of the idea or exploring
Right.
in that thing because it is very powerful. I played against I think it was Lambda recently. I was actually helping um, him with in the deck building channel with sort of tweaking it, and he had Realm Walker and Battle Seer, obviously, and Symbolic hunting weapons. I wasn't really playing something to handle it, and it can just wipe you. Even knowing what's in the deck, it's if you just don't have the answers, it is very, very hard to deal with. And so I think there's a lot of room there. And then, you throw in some golden veils or whatever to add that extra protection, and it's like you're getting great value for whatever it is, 5 dice, 6 dice, I guess, plus because the
Yeah,
alteration.
for sure. Yeah, that's very kind. I don't mean to talk down the deck, but I'm just saying I think the psychology of it can be subtle, at least in my experience. The kind of giving yourself a psychological out for why you're not going to perform up to your standards in a tournament.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can tell you that's a real thing, right? It's something I struggled with the first couple events, and I mean, it comes down to this, right? I have a lot of pride. I don't like to lose games that I'm trying to win, and there's a confidence thing, right? That some players had and that I had. The first Shuffle Bus I played in, it was Shuffle Bus 3. I played Victoria Ghostly Mount, and I mean I knew, right? Victoria Ghostly Mount's not a deck that you build to win a competitive tournament, right? It's super fun, and I won some games, but I remember thinking like I haven't played Ashes in a while, or that was when I first got back into it. I hadn't played a lot. These players are really good. If I scrub out of this thing, I don't want to be mad at myself for it. And ran that because of that. And what I would tell people is you don't give yourself, you're not giving yourself enough credit when you do something like that. If you go into the tournament and you think you have this deck, people think it's janky, but you're gonna have fun playing the deck, and you want to see if you can prove that it can do some stuff, then go for it, right? That's great, and I would never tell anyone not to play it. I would though if you go in thinking, well, I just like like Smentric said, I just want to have an excuse for when I get into a competitive match and I lose. I want to be able to blame my deck. I don't want to blame myself. Right? You're just not giving yourself enough credit at that point. And I had to fight myself a little bit, right? Like you got to stop doing that. If you're going to because I would also get like angry that I still like would get angry that I don't have a shot at the top 8 with it, right? And then it's like, well, how did I expect to make the top 8 playing something that I knew wasn't going to get there? So you just gotta be confident, and if you want to do well, then you have to practice and know your deck, right? The biggest thing is to play what you know and know what you play. That's what Jerry Hawthorne said that one time. He's the guy that designed Mice and Mystics. He works for Plaid Hat. He used to play. He was a big HeroScape player back in the day when I used to play that with. That's how I met all those guys. And he would always say that about HeroScape, and it stands true to pretty much everything every game that there is, right? If you
Yeah. I mean, I actually use that. I think that as an excuse more, the lack of um, testing with
yeah, that's a
a
good
given
excuse too.
deck. It's
Uh huh.
like it's not so much that a given idea for me might be janky or just really not the most competitive edge. It's that I have so many decks, and like even now, right, going into AshCon, I have 3 or 4 decks that I'm like, oh, maybe this will work, but there's no way if at this point, like just considering what I might play, that I'm going to get enough testing in. I mean,
Yeah.
most of my decks, when I scroll through Ash Techie, maybe have at most like 3 or 4 games. And so I tend to sort of maybe psychologically use that as like, well, I just didn't test this enough. So, it's sort of my fault that it lost, but I can't say that's the deck's fault because who knows? I think, that I should probably do more dedicated testing. And I think that that was what was so cool about what Carl and Neil did on last Sunday,
Yeah.
where it was just spontaneous, like, hey, let's sort of demonstrate what players should be doing in terms of when you have a deck idea and you think, these are the expected metas, or we know from previous seasons what are solid decks, here's how we should test. Now, I had my own problems with how they tested and the conclusions that they came about Rhino over the course of 5 games and the way it played out. But the actual approach and methodology to it is something that I hope to take away and to do more of, where I'm dedicating not just playing the same deck even on Ash Techie with random games, but trying to pit it up against certain decks over and over again and find those play lines and then say, yeah, I'm confident in this deck, or no, I'm not confident in this deck, or here's how I would change the specific matchups.
Yeah, when are we gonna see your Rhinoa deck? Rhino and Noah, make it happen. Your two great loves together at last.
Well, actually, I of all the Phoenixborn, Noah's not at the top of my list. I think Jericho's actually one of the better uh, Rhino decks, and I even talked with you guys. I think there's like at least 10 where it could fit in pretty solidly, just with different slants as to why you're choosing one Phoenixborn or another, and what they bring. I think Echo obviously is a good choice, but I don't think it was played out how Red King envisioned, and certainly into a Brennan Widows, because that was played before the announcement of Widow's Chain. I would never play Resonance. It's just too slow, right? I would play the refreshes and really try and go for that 2 or 3 hits early on. But I do believe in the Rhino even more so. I think now with the Widow's Chain, I think you can output a lot of damage, and you can bypass creepers. So who
I'll
knows?
tell you what. I'll tell you what. Treatment. If you open or close list, if you drop a Rhino and hit me with it, and then blink it with Jericho, I will snap concede. I
It's
This
great.
this
I played a Brennan Rhino for the first like 5 AIL games, I think, and it did really well because it's just backed up with the extra burn. Like you just don't care, and I think he even did it Widows Rhino and something else, and it's like you're just damned if you do, damned if you don't. But obviously that's closed list, so you have a little more of that surprise factor, but it's fun.
yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway,
I,
moral of the story: like, play AshCon. It's really fun. It's the best event out there for just whether you're just getting into Ashes or you've played it a lot. There's cool prizes. Everybody's awesome. It's a really fun week of Ashes. Like I would just encourage everybody to play.
And it's quick. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like for all the new players or people going into it being like, I'm not sure about entering a competitive event where there's all these people who talk about like these crazy discussions about what the most cutting edge decks are, it's over quick. So you can get in there, you play your, I think it's 3 or 4 games, and then you broke that ice, and then now you have another event coming up. I think after that we'll probably get into next season of Shuffle Bus, or maybe Carl will start up AIL again. But I think it's great to just enter into the online scene.
It's a really good point. We should probably think about what would be the next tournament if you really wanted to convert some of the people who come to AshCon. And if you are a newer player that has found your way to this podcast and lasted through 40 minutes, would love to hear what your thoughts are about what the right next event is, because, yeah, I think we should, as a community, think about what does the kind of new player journey look like if AshCon is close to the beginning or could be an intro event. What's the next thing that keeps folks growing into the game? It's probably not the very first thing people do, but it's probably pretty early in people's experience.
I'll say that I entered just about a year ago now at this point. I'm almost coming up on my 1 year anniversary. And the first event that I was like, I'm not, this Shuffle Bus stuff is too scary. I don't know anybody. And then German and Chaos Theory came out with Jank Fest. And I was like, this I can do.
The Jank Fest.
This is what I'm going to enter. And so that was my foray into playing online with other people, and then got hooked from there. So hopefully that comes up soon too.
I'm sure they will do that again. If I don't know when the next Shuffle Bus will start up. If there is no Shuffle Bus or AIL after AshCon, I would love to see another Carousel tournament.
Yeah, Carousel is really fun.
Yeah, for new players. If you don't know what Carousel is, if you're listening to this, we have a bot in the Discord that you can trigger, and it will give you a random Phoenixborn and a random 3 dice types that you have to take and build a deck with. And we did that and played a tournament where we just hit that bot every round and build a new deck for... Did we build a new deck every round, or was one deck for the whole tournament? I can't remember. I don't know.
I thought it was a new one every round.
Yeah, I think it's a new one every round.
Yeah, either way, it was really cool to, deck build with some constraints. And it, you didn't have to look at the whole card pool.
I think it's actually one of the best ways to, get into deck building.
Yeah, it's really cool for that. So if, maybe I'd be up for running a tournament like that or something if there's not going to be a Shuffle Bus or an AIO for a little bit of time after AshCon ends, so we'll see.
Yeah, this would be the first Carousel with a full-time cycle, right? So that we have 7 colors that are fully built. I mean, what better time to see what kind of 3-color decks there are out there?
Right.
Is it 3? It's 3, right?
It's 3, yeah.
Yep.
And on the note of the best way of getting into deck building and choosing a limited format, picking a specific card to build around, such as Strange Copy, is a great way.
The master of the segue.
Yeah. Killer, you wanna sort of intro the idea?
I can, yeah. So we'll go into our what hopefully is a fun recurring segment we have on the show that I've lovingly named the Jank Tank, in which we would like to, going forward, solicit deck ideas from the community, and the 3 of us will decide which one we, Shark Tank style, want to invest in, and we'll pull it up on the show and go through it, and just talk about the deck, and how, if we like it, don't like it, would make changes to it, whatever. For the first show, since we kind of did this, off the cuff, without going to the community, we went internally, right, to the 3 of us, and said, here's a deck building challenge, right? Build something with Strange Copy and get some use out of the card. So I had put together a Jessa deck that basically featured Ruin Dweller and Strange Copy, and Salamander Monk. I think those were my only 2 real Strange Copy targets. Schmendrix put a couple different decks together, and I still hear you in the Discord talking about playing a Rin Whale deck in AshCon, which had Strange Copy in it at one point, right?
Uh-huh.
So there was some cool stuff there, but we settled on investing in Treatments Leo, which uses Strange Copy, and I'll pull it up here on the screen. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the list. If
I
you're
mean,
not on YouTube,
all these decks were cool. I
oh
don't
yeah,
know.
they're
When I saw it,
absolutely cool decks.
I love the ideas. And did you guys actually get to play them? Like, did you take it for a test
I
run?
I did play my one of my many Rin whale decks that I have made. And I will say I had a hype strange copy play where I um, strange copied it was some sort of chump blocker. I don't remember what it was, whether it was the Snapper or the Salamander Monk, um, into an alert knight to block something. Or no, I remember what it was. It was my Huntmaster. So it was my Huntmaster taking a hit, and I strange copied the Sonic so that it wasn't going to die from the hit, but so that it would stay alert basically through the hit, and then I could use Guide again on the next turn. And I think that strange copy actually with alert knights is pretty sweet, especially with the whale, and it made me think about how fun it would be to try and copy a whale into an alert knight, for example, or copy a whale into a vampire bat, which is kind of an alert unit that you pay for, so that you could potentially have your whale take an attack, copy the bat, swarm your whale, clear all the health from it, have a new whale at the end of the turn. So I think strange copy is very cool.
I mean, your Rin deck. I've seen a couple games now with your with the Rin whale, and Coalesce has been like that's been putting in some serious work. Uh,
Yeah, it can create a lot of problems.
I mean,
Yeah,
Shield
especially
Mage,
with
which nobody plays, but then it's the
Right.
3/5 body that adds to it, and then the trickery around Rin's Fury, where they can't punch into face, without going. It's such a cool deck. I really want to see more of that.
Yeah, I do too. I agree. It's Rin's Fury is always a card that I have trouble playing. I just don't. I'm not good at using it. But a deck like that where you're already forcing, them to attack somewhere they don't want to, and then when they finally get to kill something, Rin's Fury, it just sounds really awesome. So yeah, I want to see more of that too. Um,
But I do think the Leo deck actually has a win con, which sometimes my Rin Whale decks are, are short on.
yeah. So this Leo, I have it pulled up on the screen. I'll read through the list really fast if you're, just in case people are listening to this and not looking at the screen or whatever. It's got Chant of Revenge, 3 copies of that, a Ruined Dweller, and a Salamander Monk book. It's got a couple Anchornauts, a Crypt Guardian, a couple Fire Archers, Psychic Vampire, which is interesting, a Raptor Herder, a couple Rising Hordes, Ritualist, and a Sunshield Sentry. So like a toolbox of allies here that we can use Strange Copy with. A couple Anguish, a Blood Chains, a Choke, just looks like some flex cards. 2 Festers, 2 Raptures to get some AoE in there, and then 3 Final Cries and 3 Strange Copies. So that's the list we're looking at, and I'll tell you why I wanted to talk through this one. When we're building around Strange Copy, this deck has so many different options to do something cool with it, right? Like it just being in Leo, right? Strange Copying a Glowfinch is already cool. Like we've got a mill backup plan, and they might they can attack and think, okay, well, maybe the Glowfinch guards this and I get rid of it, right? And then you drop a Strange Copy and turn it into the Glowfinch, and now you still have a Glowfinch.
Yeah, that's one of the really fun ones where like you have a Sally and a Glowfinch, and they're like, okay, well, whatever, and then you can just like the idea right behind this was just to make everything either the target to copy into or to be the copy, and find all those different ways where the interaction actually worked both ways. And Finch is just super cool with that because it gives you any unit into a unit guard mill, which is awesome. But then there's all the other, like, I think I wrote out a list. This is all Shmeni's fault because he put a question in the rules channel, and I was like, okay, that's interesting what he's trying to do. And then Carl clarified that there's no conjuration limit that applies. And so obviously Finch was just like, this is amazing. So that's where the whole idea started. And then I think when I saw the idea of Rising Horde, where either something turns into Rising Horde or whatever, it's just that was really cool, and I just kept going from there. I basically added everything. So Anchornauts are sort of more of the target to turn them into something, because you get the immediate enter the play value, and then afterwards they're doing nothing. So either you can use them for Rapture, or you can copy them into Glowfinches, or copy them into Sallies and then get the Monk Spirit, or copy them into Ruin Dwellers and get the ping damage. The Crypt Guardian is really fun because it's also a unit guard. So one of the things is when you're copying a small guy into a big guy, that's great because when it turns back, then it dies. So like you could copy a Rising Horde into a Crypt Guardian. It will block anything, or guard anything, and then when it turns back, then you get the actual fallen tokens. Fire Archer, same thing. It's like it's got a great enter the play ability, and then it's sort of DOA, at least with a more mill burn plan. So that's another target. Psychic Vamp, I put in the one of A because it supports the mill plan, but also I was looking at the list and I'm like, well, Anchornaut, Fire Archer, Rising Horde, Ritualist, I've only got one attack. So if there's something where I need a little bit extra punch and I don't really want to be on the offensive, that gets me there. It also just makes it annoying to go into because you have the Finch as a unit guard as well. And then the Ritualist is there to do this sort of chant of revenge because I got a ton of allies. Copying anything into Sunshield Sentry. I think Meatloaf, he's Clue's friend. He's a newer player on the Discord. He brought that up, and I was like, yes, let's fit that in there. So I started going into 4 colors instead of, I think, originally 3. And I even had shared Sorrows to try and cycle the Strange Copy, but I sort of went with a little bit more traditional removal between the Festers and the Bloodchains, and Choke, sort of to actually make this list something that I think is actually good. Like it's usable. It's not just tricks. I think it actually does have a win condition. I think it does have good play, and it has a lot of the bases covered. So that was the idea. And I did play it once, and it was really fun copying. I think I copied a Sally into a Realm Walker just to trade. And like, that's amazing. Trading 2 dice for the Realm Walker, and left my Crypt Guardian up for end of round exhaustion. So that was super cool.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts? That was my like explanation of it, but what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I look at like, again, just going back to Glowfinch, right, and saying, okay, and remember that like Strange Copy can be used against the opponent's units too. It's not just yours. So you can copy their stuff too. And just like you said, the thing where you copy a small guy into a big guy and then it dies after it comes back, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff I feel like you could find with Glowfinch, even on their side of the board, where you copy Glowfinch into something big and do something cool, and then still get to mill 2 cards.
I wish I'd played this against Grisamentum. I think he goes on Ashteki as Yagarek. I don't really know how to say it, but he's got that Archosaurus deck that he's been running lately, and man, that would just be a sweet feeling to copy a Glowfinch or a Sally into an Archosaurus. It's like, oh yeah, I got nothing to block you. Well, there we go. That would be fun.
Just kill whatever attacks you and still mill 2 cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Is just.
Do you still
sweet.
get the mill? Oh yeah, I guess you do.
Yeah, you do because
the copy wears off.
Yeah, assuming that you copy something that's not going to die from the attack you're sucking up, right? So like you get someone attacks you for 3, you turn your Glowfinch into a Hammer Knight, block it, stay, it's alert so you don't exhaust, and then you turn back into a Glowfinch and you die and they mill 2.
That's so
which
cool.
is awesome. That sold me on this deck before I even looked at the rest of it.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. The only other thing I was going to say is I love the Salamander Monk thing because, not only can you turn something into a monk and get a spirit, but you can also turn a spirit into something that can actually block.
Yep.
And then you might have two Salamander Monk Spirits on the board and nothing else, right? And they think they're getting through the face, and you're like, oh, strange copy into whatever you're attacking me with, and now I block.
Yep.
And you get to clear the spirit off the board too. So a lot of really cool synergy there that I liked a lot.
Yeah, I think it's very cool. I'm all fired up right now just because I'm realizing this point about being able to copy something with more health, enough health to tank the hit, and then kill the thing opens up some, I think, interesting double down plays in particular. So like, I've been very obsessed with trying to trick people into hitting a vampire bat so that I can double down, swarm and double down, and then have 3 attackers with the group tactics turned on. And you could actually do this with, like Strange Copy actually advances that plan, right? Because you could Strange Copy the bat into something with more health, tank a hit, and then
No, you can't, because you only get 1 reaction per turn.
Yeah,
dang it. Ah,
so close.
that always trips me up.
That rule is there to for this game to not be Magic where there's 100 reactions played on the turn, but it
Just
does
stop
Yeah,
training.
but
it does kill so many combos that would be so cool. But yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah, no 1 reaction per turn.
I will still say that the vampire bat's a pretty good target for that kind of, if you want to be able to strange copy something. I think that strange copy bat so that the new unit can also swarm can be fun. But yeah, this has a ton of stuff in it and is really cool. So did you just get the 1 game in with it?
Yeah, I haven't actually had a lot of time to play more than usually like 1 game a night. Although I played a couple like in the middle of the day and part testing Ashcon deck, considerations, and then I just decided now this one I have to at least play it once before we do the show so that I can talk about any fun interactions. And it is fun, and it's definitely, I think, a deck I'm going to play more because there's just too many opportunities, not just to be fun and tricky and like have those wow factor plays, but I actually am interested in whether this has legs to carry it, because there's a lot of burn damage in here, and it's got enough ceremonial to recur the allies as well. So I do think that you have that backup plan, and naturally, Finch, even if you're not on, I think, a strict mill plan, it is just annoying enough. Like the number of times where you lose 2 cards and those are the cards that you need, it adds up, right? Even if it's just
Oh, yeah.
6 cards
Finch
over
on
the
its
game.
own can mill. Finch on its own can produce mill damage by round 3.
No doubt about
End
it.
of round 3.
Yeah, and if you're copying into Finch as well, then you're adding, up to, I mean, let's say you just have 1 strange copy every round. You start with 1 and then you get 2 more. That's 4 cards a round extra, which is pretty sweet.
And that's the other thing again that I said both of these things, but I didn't say them together. Is like I love strange copying a Salamander Monk Spirit into a Glowfinch, and then using that to guard an attack. Right, so it's like they
No
attack.
one will see that coming.
No, but they attack your Glowfinch with their own Salamander Monk Spirit, right? And they're like, "Oh, let's get rid of this stupid Glowfinch and take my 2 mil." And then
Especially if your Glowfinch is exhausted, which does
yeah,
it is a target for blood chains and other stuff.
right.
Yes.
And then especially then if they find a way to exhaust it, and you turn your Salamander Monk Spirit, which can't even block, right, into a Glowfinch that can now guard the other Glowfinch, and block for it, counter for a damage, and clear your unit that can't block off the battlefield, and mill them for 2. Like, that's such a good play. It's so cool.
There's a lot of things there. I think it has like Strange Copy as an answer to Terrifying and Gigantic is a really interesting consideration that I might want to look at in other decks, and just really making extra value from either things that have enter the play effects that then just sit there, or that have interesting out of play effects, whether that's on destroy or whatever. And I was this close to putting, instead of Chant of Revenge, I was like, well, I could go 2 routes. I was considering, because I have the charm, to do a Fallen deck, and then really making use of the Fallen as, okay, well, they're walls or they're something else. And I thought that could be really cool too. And in that case, I might actually go more of the shared sorrow route to pull them back and just keep making value. But it's something that now that I've sort of seen the light, I'm going to probably include it in a lot more decks.
Yeah, so I guess to suggest something, I really like this deck, but just to make a suggestion because I want to make at least one. I look at that. I mean, I know why you put the Psychic Vampire in the deck. I don't know. I think it's probably better as another card. The Sentry is okay if we're worried about getting rushed down and we're going to use that. I don't know that I really like it that much with Strange Copy, only because, I mean, if you're going to copy something into the Sentry, aren't you probably just going to use the Sentry?
Well, the idea is that you actually get 4 blocks, or you get 2 blocks and you send 2 back, right?
And send 2 back. Yeah, so I guess there's a really, really wide swing, then that's helpful. So I don't know. And I just look at it and see that your only charm card, and I look at whenever there's like a list that has 1 card in it and 1 die for that 1 card, I'm always like, can I take this out and replace it with something else in one of the colors I'm using, just to make my deck a little tiny bit more consistent.
Yeah.
And
no, that's totally fair.
But like, I mean, in fairness, you do have Glowfinch, which costs a basic every round. So you have a use for that charm die if you don't have a Sentry in your hand. But and what other basic sinks do you have? I mean, you have Anguish and you have Anchornaut.
Yeah, that's
I guess that's 1 die from a Crypt Guardian. So there's not a lot of basic use in here, so I get a little scared of that charm die. But like I said, you can always use it on Glowfinch, so it's not like not a horrible thing. But I look at the list and I wish it had another Blood Chains, just because I know I've seen situations where they find a way to exhaust the Glowfinch, and you can't use it again, and you need to get rid of it, or this last tournament that I played, I played that Aerodel and I had Anchornos just sitting on my board the whole time. Now, in this, I mean, you do have Strange Copy, which can turn into the Glowfinch and get rid of the Anchornot, so that's cool. But there's not a ton of removal in here, so I wouldn't mind another Blood Chains. So I guess if I had to make one thing, maybe I'd swap the Psychic Vampire out for a Blood Chains. I know you're worried about the attack value, but you got Ruin Dweller for 3 every turn on the board. And you got a ton of burn damage. I don't think I'm too worried about it, personally.
Yeah, no, that's cool. What about you, Shmeny?
I love the idea of Leo Fallen. So that seems like a cool direction. I've just been thinking about now Strange Copy. I think your point about Strange Copy on Rising Horde is really cool, and it makes me think about the king of Rising Horde abuse in Rowan, and all the ways that I can just Strange Copy random other units into more Rising Hordes for Rowan. Like, I think it'd be interesting to, get a Rising Horde and a Knowledge Seeker down on the board, for example, and if they swing into the Knowledge Seeker, Strange Copy that, get your Rising Horde trigger, and put the Knowledge Seeker under Rowan so you can still get that additional card draw from the Knowledge Seeker, or, vice versa. Anyway, I was off on a whole other tangent inspired by your Rising Horde abuse, but I think it's very cool.
I mean, that's the point of it, right? Like, I mean, that's what I love about. Well, I guess that's part of why the 3 of us are here, is because we sort of spiral on the ideas, right? I mean, that's I think probably favorite part of Ashes, is just the multitude of ways you can take 1 card, 1 synergy, and then try and blow it up, take it to the the nth level, and then once you've experienced or played with the extremes, you can then start to hone it back in, and trim it to something that is viable in a multitude of ways, that's not just based off of battle tricks or surprise. And so I am interested in seeing where this goes, and you're probably right, Killer. Psychic Vampire is probably the cheeky card in there, but I also have a Leo Fallen deck. That's why I didn't go that way. And I slotted in a strange copy in there, and I didn't want to just reuse that list for today's episode. So maybe I'll see how that goes as well.
We never would have known.
Yeah.
No.
Well, no, you would have known because I played it against Chaos Theory on his new segment. So shout out to him because he's now running through, I think, all of the Adventuring Party decks.
Oh, yeah.
And so I actually played that Fallen Orca Dove Leo. I call it the Birds and the Zombies. And it so far has been actually doing quite well in a variety of games. So I didn't want to just rehash something that's already out there on somebody else's channel. Stomped
That's
them
the
with
birds
it, by
and
the
the
way.
zombies, like birds and the bees.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, that's so your Leo deck is our first Jank Tank approved deck, and we'll make sure you publish this on Ashes.live, and Schmendrix and I will publish ours as well that we submitted. So
Yeah, Cactus and I each get 30% of the proceeds
Yes,
from that deck.
that's right.
It's tournament winnings.
Nice. Wait, so if I win the set of dice, does that mean I have to give up 30%? Okay, cool.
Yep, that's how it works.
I'll take the time.
Yep, divine for me, please. But yeah, so we'll get this out there, and then we're hoping to end every show with a deck building challenge from the Wheel of Jank, which I'm going to pull up here in a second. And, Treatment, since we looked at your deck this time, why don't you choose, you can flip a coin or do whatever, choose me or Shmenny to build a deck with the Wheel of Jank. And so how this is going to work is we have a bunch of different Jank ideas that we've put together here. And I'm going to spin this wheel, and whoever Treatment picks is going to have to build a deck with this thing it lands on.
Cool. Well, I can't see the wheel, so you're going to spin it?
I am going to spin it. I will tell you what it says, and everybody else that's watching on YouTube will be able to see it.
So is this like American Gladiators style, where one of us has to build a Jank deck, and then the community sends up their Jank decks built on the same concept?
Oh, it certainly can be.
Yeah, I think we could workshop that idea.
Not in my mind, but I think that's phenomenal. So let's do that. Treatment, you pick one of the two of us, and we'll put our deck up against everything the community can throw at us with this Jank idea.
I think that would be really cool, and we can maybe get a channel for like this specifically, and then we could put up those decks and then just like do a emote voting and see which deck comes up in front. And then we'll publish obviously all the decks as well so that people can just see them as we come.
And if anyone out there in the community listening to this has ideas to go on the Wheel of Jank that aren't here, please let me know. I will add them, and we can make this thing as big as it can possibly be. There's a lot of stuff on here right now. I don't know how many there are. There's probably 40 different things. So, who's gonna do it? Treatment, me or Shmenny?
I'm gonna say Shmenny because I mean you're publishing new ideas every morning. That's sort of what I drink my coffee with instead of listening to the news. I look at what Killer has put together for the day. So I want to see an idea from Schmendrix.
All right,
he's just trying to help me cut my therapy bills by helping me process my Rin whale obsession to something else.
I mean, I'm not saying you can't include Rin and whale into whatever the idea is.
Great. Perfect.
I have spun the Wheel of Jank, and it's coming out on Play with Dolls.
Oh, that's fun. Okay, so the idea was living dolls. Yeah.
So we're gonna make a deck around living doll, Schmendrix. It just barely missed cut the strings.
Ooh.
Oh God, I've never.
Just barely missed that. So question: should I remove Play with Dolls from the Wheel of Jank now, or should we leave it there for future spins? I can remove it.
Oh, that's an interesting. I'm okay removing. We have so many ideas. I'm okay cycling, trying to cycle through them all.
I am taking Play with Dolls off of the Wheel of Jank. So, but that is your charge, Schmendrix, to build a living doll deck. I am insanely jealous, by the way, because living doll is my favorite card in all of Ashes.
Wow.
But
I'm happy to give you.
Oh, no,
or you can just take all your love of living doll and pour it into hate for my deck.
Yeah, that's fine.
Also cool.
I'll probably just build one anyway and submit it under my son's name in the Discord. You guys won't know. Um,
You know, what? It's in color with Living Doll.
Yeah.
strange
Strange
copy.
copy.
Yep,
Uh-huh.
certainly is.
I mean,
So
just an idea that I was already considering was Rin Living Doll with Whale, because then
Mm.
they're not touching it, and you just
mm,
have to small sack or otherwise all day, pick your shots.
yep.
So
All
you
right.
can have the
So
best of both worlds.
next, hopefully we're gonna do this podcast every 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from today, or we'll be recording a Jank Tank with Living Doll decks that will either be Smendrix's deck or one of the other ones from the community that we decide to invest in.
That's awesome.
And we'll post them all on ashes.live. And in the meantime, I think that about wraps us up for the first episode of the Jankyard. Really excited to be doing this with you guys. I'm glad you agreed to do it. I miss podcasting. I did it with Summoner Wars, and it's a lot of fun. So glad to have you guys on.
Thank you for being our fearless leader.
Yeah, this is awesome. Like I think without the push to actually do it, like it's been on my mind, but I never would have actually initiated it. And this is awesome because I have a million things to talk about or a million ideas to try and cover. So this is a great outlet for that.
Yep. I agree. I'm looking forward to more of these. So, do we have a cool sign off? We might need a cool sign off.
Yeah, we're gonna have to workshop that.
Yeah, I haven't. I thought about like the intro a little bit and stuff, but the
Where'd our intern go?
Yeah,
he's still here. Ben,
take
what's
the
our
jank to
sign-off
the
gonna
bank.
be? This is why you're here.
Take
mean
the
like an
jank to the
outro?
bank.
Yeah, an
We
outro.
need, we need some kind
Okay,
of outro.
you want like a saying or something? You're
Yeah.
gonna, like a catchphrase.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. First of all, in my defense, you never told me I was gonna be coming up with cool catchphrases. For
I
the
did
show
not,
yet.
but what else? That's what you're here for. You're the young blood of the show. You need to be on the spur of the moment, man.
Oh, jeez, I was not prepared.
That's all right. We'll
Let's go with take the jank to the
Take the
bank. I
jank
think that's a good,
to the bank.
at
All
least
right.
for week one.
Yeah, I like it. We're going with that for now. And I'll give Ben 2 weeks to come up with something better than
Yeah,
that.
I'll come up with something.
Otherwise,
And,
you got to cut him from the payroll.
Yeah, that's it. Now that I know how to work the technology, you're irrelevant
Yeah.
unless you can come up with a cool outro.
All right.
All right,
So,
guys.
2 weeks.
Yep. Hopefully we'll be back well, not hopefully, we will. Darn it, we will be back in 2 weeks. In the meantime, take the jank to the bank, and we'll see you guys out on the Discord.
This is the Jankyard.
Have a good night.
Later.
Yep. Peace.